So as I'm sure you've noticed, the prices of everything are going through the roof lately. And one of the ways that we combat that here on the homestead is by growing as much of our own food as possible. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I save maximum cash when I start my own seeds here on the homestead. So as you may have noticed, I haven't been posting a lot of YouTube videos lately, and there's a couple reasons for that. Well, the first reason is that I've been writing a new book. Don't tell anybody, it's still on the down low. And the other piece of that is I've been really focused on the podcast. So we have video episodes of the podcast now here on the channel, and I've been diving into some really meaty topics this season. So I've just been shifting my focus and kind of reevaluating what we're doing. But without fail, spring always brings a lot of excitement, so I thought today would be a really good day to come out here and talk about seeds. So if you're gonna start a vegetable garden this year, one of the biggest ways you can save cash is by starting your own vegetable plants versus buying them at the nursery. Like, take tomatoes for example. A started tomato plant can run around $3 to $4 each. And you contrast that with a packet of heirloom organic tomato seeds. You might be paying $3 for an entire packet of 50 seeds or more. So it doesn't take long to figure out that you're gonna save a lot of money in the long term by starting your own seeds. And that can feel a little bit overwhelming to folks. So I've done a number of videos here on the channel explaining when to start and how to start. But today I wanna give you some of my favorite hacks for doing this as frugally as possible. So there are a lot of different schools of thought when it comes to the containers you use to start your seeds. You can be super extravagant, you can be super simple, and it probably doesn't surprise those of you who have followed me for a while that I like to keep it simple. The other thing I take into consideration here is cost and sustainability. So there are lots of peat pellets or peat pots that you can purchase. That to me is a reoccurring cost that I'd rather not have year after year, and not to mention peat isn't a very sustainable material. So I try to avoid that, and thankfully I have found I don't really need them to start a ton of seeds pretty successfully. So what I have used year after year are these nursery trays. I think I got these on Amazon about 5 years ago. I have reused these over and over, so these aren't going into the garbage can every year. And when these wear out, I might find a different option, but for now, they work and they're affordable. So I use these year after year. These fit right into this tray, and oftentimes I'll put my seeds right in here and let them grow quite a ways before I transfer into the next size of container. Now, there are smaller containers out there, and I'll show you some when we go into the house and I show you my seed room. The problem that I run into when I use really small containers is that they dry out really, really fast, and I lose more seeds, or I'm having to water like twice a day. And that's also what happens when I tried using some of the nifty tricks you see on Pinterest. So this size for me is just about perfect for starting tomatoes, peppers, brassicas, and then I transfer up a month or two before we go into the garden. Now, you've seen this before if you've seen my other seed videos. This is my potting up option. Again, I know it's plastic. It's not my favorite material in the whole world, but I'm using these year after year and they're not going into the trash. So I will pop the tomatoes out of here and stick them in my solo cups. And again, these were a one-time purchase and we're calling it good. So when you compare what you might spend in some of the fancy seed systems that you see online versus this, you're gonna be saving a considerable amount of cash. One other trick, if you're going super frugal, is if you have some of those foil lasagna trays, you know, with the plastic lids that go on top, those are really awesome for starting smaller amounts of seeds. And if you put that plastic cover, it kind of has a little bit of a greenhouse effect, and that can help those little tiny seedlings start off really well. All right, so trick number 2 isn't gonna save you millions of dollars, but it will save you a little bit of cash, and it just keeps this whole process less fussy. So when I start my seeds, I use regular old potting soil. And I know there are plenty of bags of seed starting mix and all sorts of fancy things at the garden store. I tried it, but I haven't found really any difference between regular old potting soil and seed starting mixes, and regular potting soil is definitely a little bit cheaper. Now, the biggest difference with this versus a seed starting mix is that it has bigger particles. And sometimes, every once in a while, you know, one of these clods with these little pieces of wood will block a seed from coming up, but honestly, it doesn't happen very much, and it really hasn't been that big of an issue. So I start with potting soil and I pot up with potting soil, and it just keeps things a little bit easier. All right, the next trick I want to show you is over in the house. So even though I have the fancy greenhouse, I still start my tiny, tiny baby seeds here in the house because there's too much temperature fluctuation out there right now. Once they get a little stronger and the weather gets a little more stable, then they'll go outside. So my next frugal hack is to use regular old cheapo shop lights as grow lights. Now you can buy expensive versions, but these are regular old lights we got from Lowe's. They have a T8 bulb in them and they work wonderfully. Now, every once in a while, I'll have someone say they can't find these particular bulbs, so just look for an LED equivalent. I use these year after year, so this is a one-time investment, and as long as they're low on the seeds, they're not too far up, everything grows like a champ. So right now, since it's still pretty early for us, I just have my tomatoes and my peppers started. I do have some brassicas, the cabbage, the broccoli, and the cauliflower for the greenhouse. It's too early for me to get those started for my outside garden since I don't plant till around Memorial Day weekend. But the tomatoes never hurts to start them plenty early, and the peppers can take all the extra time they can get. So of course, the most frugal option of all when it comes to lights would to just be the sun. You could put your seeds in a windowsill. Number one, I don't have a window big enough to fit these in. And even if I did, the problem that I've run into with starting seeds in a windowsill is that they don't get quite enough light, so they get really leggy. You guys may have had that happen before where your tomatoes are that tall and they're kind of falling over. That's just because the light they're getting is not intense enough. And that's why when I am starting my tomatoes, I'm putting these lights down low and I raise them as I go. So for me, when I'm doing anything in quantity, the investment of these lights make a lot of sense. If you have a really awesome window setup, you can make it work. You just might have to be mindful of those spindly seedlings. And my last money-saving seed hack for you today has to do with the seeds themselves. So the seeds you're buying do make a difference. And you might be able to find vegetable seeds at the dollar store, but a lot of times those seeds are old and they don't have a great germination rate. So even if you're saving a couple bucks on your seed purchase, it doesn't really help you if none of them come up. So pick a company that is reputable, that has good quality seeds with high germination rates. And that makes a huge difference and also decreases your frustration in starting those seeds. Another trick that I like to do is to use heirloom seeds or open pollinated seeds, which means they're not hybrids. And this is important because this allows you to save the seeds, and these seeds will be true to type. So these are some San Marzano tomato seeds that I saved last year. I just had some overripe tomatoes. I opened them up and let these seeds soak in some water for a day or two, and then I let them dry, and here they are. So now I basically have a whole nother set of tomato seeds for free. This was $0 to get this. And you can do this with your cucumbers and your squash and your pumpkins and your corn. There are some varieties of vegetables like cabbages or broccoli that are a little trickier to save seeds from, but a lot of them, it works brilliantly, and you can only do this if they are open pollinated. So my absolute favorite place to get heirloom, organic, open pollinated vegetable seeds is True Leaf Market. I've been using them for a number of years now. The germination rates are fantastic. The seeds are super affordable and they have very fast shipping. And they give me a coupon code to share with you. If you use code JILL before April 15th, 2022, you can save $10 off your order of $50 or more. So we're just planting some of the greens that can withstand the cold right now out here, and then we'll put out some other stuff later. So we have arugula, we have mustard, we have kale, and some different lettuces and spinaches back there. We're also trying some potatoes. They're actually the leftover seed potatoes that have been sitting in my basement all winter long. They're a little too shriveled to eat, so we stuck them in the ground and we'll see what happens.